Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thanks a lot for coming.
No problem.
Okay, if you come late, you have to sit all the way up front. All right, let's start with a prayer. Thank you, God, for this beautiful day in this whole building, and pray that this service makes you smile. Amen. Amen. All right, how about we start, well, let's see, welcome to the East Clarendon Chapel, first of all, built in 1891. And let's start with the East Clarendon Association Choir, and we will sing Gospel Ship. What was that?
This song has a chorus that's simple enough for everybody to sing along with, I hope. The words of the chorus are, I'm going to take a trip on that old gospel ship. I'm going far beyond the sky. I'm going to shout and sing till the heavens ring when I bid this world goodbye.
Get it.
And then I'll sing the verse. So we'll start with the chorus, and you'll learn it as we go. But sing it. If you know other words to it, the verses that I'm singing, sing along with that too. In G players. I'm gonna take a trip on that old gospel ship. I'm going far beyond the sky. I'm gonna shout and sing till heaven's ring when I bid this world goodbye. Well, I've good news to bring, and here is why I sing. All my joys with you I'll share. Yeah, I'm gonna take a trip on that old gospel ship and go sailing through the air. I'm gonna take a trip. I'm gonna take a trip on that old gospel ship. I'm going on beyond the sky. I'm gonna shout and sing till heaven's ring when I bid this world goodbye. Well, I can scarcely wait. I know I won't be late. I'll spend my time in prayer. And when my ship comes in, I'll leave this world of sin. I'll go sailing through the air. I'm gonna take a trip on that old gospel ship. I'm going far beyond the sky. I'm gonna shout and sing till heaven rings when I bid this world goodbye. If you're ashamed of me, then you ought not to be. Yes, you better have a care. If too much fault you find, you'll sure be left behind while I'm sailing through the air. I'm gonna take a trip on that old gospel ship. I'm going far beyond the sky. I'm gonna shout and sing till heaven's ring when I bid this world goodbye. Yes, I'm gonna take a trip on that old gospel ship. I'm going far beyond the sky. I'm gonna shout and sing till heaven's ring when I bid this world goodbye. I'm gonna take a trip on that old gospel ship. I'm going far beyond the sky. I'm gonna shout and sing till heaven's ring when I bid this world goodbye.
All right. So let's start with a little bit of history. I know everybody's been curious about this building for many, many years. Thanks for coming and seeing the inside. Let's see. At a meeting, this is all from the records, from the church record book. At a meeting held at the schoolhouse in District Number 4 in East Clarendon on the 18th day of May, 1890 at 7 p.m. by the subscribers to a fund raised for the purpose of building a chapel near the cemetery, spelled with an S, at East Clarendon. George W. Wright was chosen chairman and Leonard Stewart secretary, and the following, this is written in old cursive, Constitution was adopted. Article 1st, this society shall be called the Union Chapel Association. Article 2nd, the object of this association shall be to build, furnish, and keep in repair a chapel to be used for religious worship, funeral occasions, singing schools, Sabbath schools, lectures, and for any purpose that will benefit the morale of this community. Any person who wishes to become a member of the society shall have their names, blah, 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 and shall pay to the treasurer of the society $1. So, a day less than 1 year later, the members of the Union Chapel Association of East Clarendon are hereby notified to meet at said chapel in East Clarendon on Tuesday, the 12th day of May, 1891. May 29th, 1916. Dear Sir, at a meeting of the Church of the Advent Christian Society of the Household of Faith of East Clarendon, it was voted to, I can't understand some of these words, instruct the clerk of the church to invite to your society, requesting them to grant said church the preference in the building meetings in the chapel. So apparently that was the new name of the people that were the main congregation. Article 10 amended to read as follows: Advent Christian Society of the Household of Faith of East Clarendon, May 29th, 1916. Okay, so how about Mr. Marcos Levy on the Mason and Hamlin pump organ with the help of the Church of the Advent Christian Society of the Household of Faith of East Clarendon Quartet, along with all of you to sing What a Friend We Have in Jesus. So if you want to stand up and the words are in front of you, and we're going to do this not real slow. We can, I don't know. What a friend we have in Jesus, What a friend we have in Jesus, huh? Not everybody may believe that he was anything other than a good man on the earth, but Jim Morrison of the Doors once said, "You cannot petition the Lord with prayer." I'm going to disagree with him. Up front here, there's some CDs and some paper typewritten story that my mother wrote in the early 60s. And I'd like everybody that wants one to please take it. There's not enough for everybody, but if you leave your name and an email address or something, I will make sure you get a copy. And it's about a full-fledged miracle about my father who was healed of among other things, a brain tumor. So there's that. So please don't forget, take one, pass it on. So Marcos, don't go away. How about we go down to Mill River and pray? Okay, and here you have somewhere in your hymn sheets there.
Third page.
Well, they aren't all the same, sorry.
This is a test.
Mine is the second.
This is special. Proceed with it.
How about, can we get the choir to help us out here?
Leaders.
Mary, you want to come up? We can
Good morning.
That sounds good.
We are not performing for you. We are supporting.
Thank you.
If they were performing, they'd be getting paid.
Not too slow. As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear
So, a little more history. So apparently they wanted to go down to the Mill River to pray because on the 14th day of October 1924 at 8 p.m. for the purposes of transacting the following: to see about moving the chapel. The chapel used to be up across the cemetery by the airport. President George A. Grover, prayer offered by Mrs. Alice Baker. Purpose of the meeting, that the chapel be moved to the grounds opposite the land of Mr. and Mrs. W.D. Vaughn, the land to be given and deeded by George and Deborah Grover. We will be able to hire Mr. Drinwater for the moving, as he offers to do so for a moderate expense. A basement and cement foundation planned for if the building is moved, which apparently never happened. The president stated $110 is already donated for moving. It was moved and seconded that the church be moved, providing the investigating committee find that the Chapel Association will not be put in debt by so doing, and the chapel shall be put in good condition. Contract regarding the moving of chapel. This being a contract on this third day of November 1924 between the East Clarendon Chapel Association and Charles Drinwater, whereby the Chapel Association agrees to pay the said Charles Drinwater $125 for his labor. I wish he was still around. Said Chapel Association also agrees to furnish 3 men and 1 horse, the men's wages not to exceed $3 per day. The said Charles Drinwater agrees to move the chapel from its present location onto a parcel of land staked and deeded to the association by George A. Grover and wife, and said parcel of land being located on the south side of the main highway, which this used to be the main highway, the Bellows Falls Highway, before they improved Route 103, across from land owned by Walter Vaughn. Said Drinwater to move chapel in a workmanlike manner. And apparently there's a photo somewhere, if anybody can ever come up with it, with this building being moved with oxen and rollers. That'd be fun. Okay, how about we get the Union Chapel Singing Society to come up and sing Gambling?
Yes, so this is Gambling Man, and I believe this was done originally by the Norfolk Jubilee Gospel Quartet back in the early 1900s. And it's a style of singing called radio gospel. And this we learned originally from my son Luke. So, where is the gambling?
Lord, I wonder where is the gambling man. I wonder where that poor man's gone.
looking so nice and gay. Oh yeah. I told my brother that he was gonna come and carry his soul away.
Lord, did I wonder
where is the candle man? I wonder where that poor man's gone. I wonder where is the candle man? I wonder where that poor man's gone.
my Jesus bared his cross alone, so all the world go free. There's a cross for everyone, and there's a cross for me. Lord, did I
wonder where is the candle man? I wonder where that poor man's gone. I wonder where is the candle man? I wonder where that poor man's gone.
It's early in the morning when this trumpet shall sound. The dead begin to rise. The morrow Jesus done says, oh my Lord, 'cause Jesus will hear his cry.
Lord, did I
Wonder where is the candle man? I wonder where that poor man's gone. I wonder where is the candle man? I wonder where that poor man's gone.
Lord, did I
Wonder where is the candle man? I wonder where that poor man's gone.
Thank you, that was great. Along the way, I was cleaning up the rug. It was pretty mouse infested, and underneath the rug was a single sheet of Rutland Daily Herald along the whole way, apparently to keep the place warmer. I'm sorry I pulled it up. But I was reading some of the old Heralds, and a cord of wood was $2.50. And it didn't say if that was split or delivered or not.
Stacked.
Stacked, yeah. And so the men were making $3 a day, so I don't know, I can figure that out. I don't know if it's sounds pretty good, actually. Buy a cord of wood and have some change left over a day. And there was some financial advice in those Daily Heralds that happened to be about 2 years before the Great Depression. So I don't think they actually were seeing that coming. But John C. Stewart, the Ford dealer in Cuttingsville, the phone number if you wanted to reach them to buy a new car was 12. So speaking of phone numbers, how about we do a phone song? Jesus is on the main line. No. You guys sing it. It's an easy song if you guys want to join in. Here's two extra copies actually. Here.
So there's a call and response that's coming in this song, and if you can sing on the entire song, but definitely be there on the call and response. We say, call me, you go call him, tell him what you want. Call him, tell him what you want. You'll get it. It'll be repetitive enough. All right. Well, Jesus is on that main line.
Tell him what you want.
Well, Jesus is on that main line.
Tell him what you want.
Oh, Jesus is on that main line.
Tell him what you want. You can call him up and tell him what you want.
His line ain't never busy.
Tell him what you want.
No, his line ain't never busy.
Tell him what you want.
Chapel Association of East Clarendon Crooners. Okay, a little more history. So now we're in the Great Depression, May 19th, 1936. It was voted to erect a toilet on the back of the church building 45 years later. Maybe they had short services those days. Let's see. And it will be left to the trustees and the president to build whatever they thought suitable. It was voted to have the president look into the cost and possibility of insurance. Imagine that. Let's see. So the members of the Chapel Association, okay, now we're going to skip to May 21st, 1940, 4 years later. The members of the Chapel Association met at the chapel May 21st, 1940. The secretary's report and treasurer's report were both read and accepted. The secretary reported a balance of $3.54 in the bank. The treasurer reported that the cost of building the new toilet was $26.56, and that these bills have all been paid. George Grover reported his findings as to the cost of insuring the church building, and as the cost was to be high and there was no source of income at present, it was agreed by the members present not to have it insured. And look at all the money that the church has saved. The selling of the piece of land where the church was to stand was discussed, and it was decided not to sell it for less than $50. So that was the land up across the airport after they had moved it. Now we'll skip to November 1st, 1960. A special meeting of the Union Chapel Association was held at the home of Mr. and Mrs. Vaughn, across the street here, with 4 members present. It was noted that there are 7 living members of the association whose names are recorded on page 51 of this book. The treasurers gave a complete report of funds received and paid out since 1942. So that must have saved a lot of time. Have one treasurer report every 18 years. It was noted that the piece of land where the church originally stood was sold to the city of Rutland to be added to the airport land in 1945 for the sum of $250. Money in the association bank account on January 1st, 1960 was $227.54. It was voted to admit new members. It was voted to admit those present that are desirable and paying $1 and signing the Constitution. It was voted to take into the association as members the following 4 members: Miss Martha S. White, Miss Helen White, Miss Anna White, and Miss Shirley White. They paid the $1 each joining. So they must have been desirable. And we are happy today to have Marjorie, Anna, and Doris White here. Okay, let's see. How about the Union Chapel of the Advent Church of East Clarendon Serenaders come up and sing.
Ezekiel saw the wheel way up in the middle of the air. Ezekiel saw the wheel way in the middle of the air. Little it runs like faith, and
wheel runs by the grace of God. A wheel in a wheel, way in the middle of the air. Some little
And sing and shout.
way in the middle of the air.
6 months later, they're all shouted out.
Way in the middle of the air. Seagull saw the wheel. Way up in the middle of the air. Seagull saw the wheel. Way in the middle of the air. The little wheel runs by the big. The big wheel runs by the grace of God. A wheel in a wheel. Way in the middle of the air.
Let me tell you about the critter too.
Way in the middle of the air.
He's talking about me and talking about you.
Way in the middle of the air. Seagull saw the wheel. Way up in the middle of the air. Seagull saw the wheel. Way in the middle of the air. The little wheel runs by the big. And the big wheel runs by the grace of God. A wheel in a wheel. Way in the middle of the air.
One thing that you can't do.
Way in the middle of the air. You can't serve God and Satan too. Way in the middle of the air. Ezekiel saw the wheel. Way up in the middle of the air. Ezekiel saw the wheel. Way in the middle of the air. Well, the little wheel runs by faith. And the big wheel runs by the grace of God. A wheel in a wheel. Way in the middle of the air. These days on the middle clock. Way in the middle of the air. This old world's gonna reel and rock. Way in the middle of the air. Oh, Ezekiel saw the wheel. Way up in the middle of the air. Ezekiel saw the wheel. Way in the middle of the air. Little wheel runs by faith. Big wheel runs by the grace of God. A wheel in a wheel. Way in the middle of the air.
Way down there in the middle of the
Way in the middle of the air. An angel's working on a chariot wheel. Way in the middle of the air. Oh, Ezekiel saw the wheel. Way up in the middle of the air. Ezekiel saw the wheel. Way in the middle of the air. The little wheel runs by faith. And the big wheel runs by the grace of God. A wheel and a wheel. Way in the middle of the air. Wheel and a wheel. Way in the middle of the air. A wheel and a wheel. Way in the middle of the air.
So, the Old Testament says to love your neighbor, and Jesus, the God-man, said to love your enemies. It's kind of a tough one. And this guy named Luke wrote some of Jesus' words. He said, "But I say to you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. And just as you want men to treat you, treat them in the same way," which is actually what we call the golden rule, which there's many religions out there that have the same thing. But love your enemies and do good and lend, expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High, for he himself is kind to ungrateful and evil men. So, if we could get the Union Chapel Association of East Clarendon Chorale to sing Sermonette, please.
I heard me a sermonette. Have you heard it yet? With that soulful message that you won't soon forget. It tells about real true love, people lost sight of through their sinful living and scorning the heaven above. It tells you to love one another. listen, bow your head and listen to this sermonette. I heard me a sermonette. Have you heard it yet? With that soulful message that you won't soon forget. It tells about real true love, people lost sight of through their sinful living and scorning the heaven above. It tells you to love one another, to feel each man your brother. Live right, 'cause you know that you'll reap what you sow. And so to have no regret and to find what you're missing, bow your head and listen to this sermonette.
So Jesus tells us to love our enemies. Who's your enemy? I can't love him. He's a, pick one, Muslim or Hindu. I can't love him. He's a, pick one, commie or socialist. I can't love him. He's a, pick one, atheist or Baptist. I can't love him. He drives a Chevy or a Ford. I'm going to make you sit up here if you don't. I can't love him. He's a, pick one, hunter or vegetarian. I can't love him. He's a, pick one, queer or a black. I can't love him. He's a, pick one, snowmobiler or landowner. I can't love him. He's a, pick one, logger or tree hugger. I can't love him. He's a, pick one, from Mexico or from New Jersey. I can't love him. He's a, pick one, Democrat or Republican. I can't love him. I just came up with this one this morning on the drive. Pick one, a slow driver or a tailgater. So it's a tall order to love your enemy, but if we could actually pull that off, we might actually have peace in this world. So a little bit more history. Now we're into the modern history. Circa 2004, this guy from up north by the name of John Parker, school teacher, goes on a covered bridge tour and he drives past the church and he says, that building's falling down, it needs to be fixed. So he did. Kids had broken in and broken all the stained glass windows and all the pews and the glass to the lamps. And previously the White Sisters had some engineering firm come in and see what it would take to fix the building, and they wouldn't climb up into the bell tower, it's too dangerous, so John climbed up and fixed it. Here it is. This was the beam holding up the bell tower. So the bell tower is leaning one direction, the church is leaning the other. John raised this side of the building about 17 inches. This church used to be left leaning. So he straightened that up and shored it up, and he shored up the bell tower and put a bell back in there, all on his own effort and money. And then we had a service on October 5th, 2014, and these pews were like this because it was 17 inches down and dipped in the middle. And I think it was this summer he came and he took the log beam down the middle. The rock had fallen out due to frost and such, and he jacked it back up, and now it's quite level. Now this church is on the level. So we're happy. And while John was underneath this building, he had a heart attack. And fortunately, he survives and he's with us. So he continues to do this as he can with his whatever time he has. And the future, he's talking about a steel beam down the middle, perhaps a new cement foundation. The roof back here really needs to be repaired sooner than later. And the chimney has to come down and be totally repaired. And we thought we'd have it on a nice cool day, so the offering might be a little better towards the chimney. It would be nice to have maybe a Christmas time service if we can get some heat in. And so I've got my hat here, my parson hat. I'm not going to pass it around. I'm going to leave it right there. But if anybody wants to, a free will offering to go towards some repairs. That we can do at the end. And let's see, I'd like to say some thank yous to Mike and Sherry Boudreau across the street here. They help me when I can't mow the grass from away. They help with that, and they have dogs. So their dogs the dog came after me this morning all the way up to the front door, so that's good. So the dogs bark, they take a look, and they make sure nobody's breaking in and busting things up. And for our musicians, Vicki Arthur and Mary Barron, thank you very much for all your work, and Jack Hoffman and Tom Hardigan, thank you for taking a long lunch to be here. Paul Segalia, thank you. Marcos Levy on that Mason and Hamlin pump organ, appreciate it. And to the Desirable White Sisters for all of your years for helping out here, and especially John Parker and for Tandy for watching out for him when he's down here, make sure he doesn't have another heart attack, and for all you folks for coming. It wouldn't be a service without you. So,
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. So if we could get Mr. Marcos Levy and
In the manner of shaking up songs, the title has nothing to do with anything that we know about Owen Sound. It means something to Don Jameson.
Like, I don't know what it means. Where he got the inspiration, where he was, like a place name, I think,
Yeah.
as far as I got.
The Lord my shepherd is, I shall be well supplied. Since He is mine and I am His, what can I want beside? What can I want beside?
He leads me to the place, He leads me to the place He wants me to
Where living waters gently pass, where living waters gently pass, and full salvation flows, and full salvation flows. If e'er I go astray, He doth my soul reclaim, and guides me in His own right way, for His most holy name, for His most holy name.
While He affords His King of kings to say
Though I should walk through death's dark shade, though I should walk through death's dark shade, my shepherd's with me there, my shepherd's with me there. Inside of all my foes, thou dost my tables spread, my cup with blessing overflows, and joy exalts my head, and joy exalts my head.
The bounties of thy love,
Nor from thy house will I remove, nor from thy house will I remove, nor cease to speak thy praise, nor cease to speak thy
help us with a couple hymns. Okay, so Mr. Marcos leads and his Shrewsbury Singers take us out with I'll Fly Away and If I Had a Hammer, and if the congregation would join in, you got the words. And
Let me be the first, Dave.
oh, that's sweet. Thank you, Ed. Thanks for coming.
Marcus. Here.
Like repeat.
If I had a hammer to take us out,
Can we play with you?
this is sharp.
It's sharp.
You got it.
We can also do it as a.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Those instruments.
Sure. Let's do it. Yeah. A little Pete Seeger. Do you want to play
Okay. Next time, okay.
Could be
Very
stories